right, they're all dead on accurate. Obviously, I've had to change the names. Most of them now are retired, but there's, I can go back and pull the names out of the air. Jack, obviously, is me, Robert Kelly. Uh, there's a little girl in there named Darnell. She's fashioned after a girl named Darlene, which was probably one of the most fascinating human beings I've ever met. She was schizophrenic and a complete sociopath. Darlene was the type of gal that would cut your throat, and as you were bleeding out, she would explain to you why she did it, and you'd damn near agree with her. She was a good looking gal, about 5 foot tall, maybe 90 pounds. I had an assistant DA one time. Darlene and I had gotten to be an item. People knew we were going together. And he said, I got to ask you something. I said, what? He said, what's it like sleeping with Darlene? And he said, I don't mean the sex part. He said, just sleeping with her. And I said, well, visualize a 5 foot tall scorpion, weighs about 90 pounds, crawl in the bed with that. That's Darlene. And he said, really? I said, really. Because she was a legend. She's still out there knocking around. Darlene's got to be in her 50s now. And she calls me from time to time. The last time I heard, she was in Utah. And the only thing I could figure, she was out there maybe trying to take down the Mormon church. But she never stopped. But I loved to go out with her because she was drop dead good looking, long blonde hair. We'd walk into a restaurant and everybody in there would want to look at Darlene. But that's the type of character. There was such a cross section. This is more, it's more about an era than it is about the characters. Atlanta plays a big part in it. I think Atlanta becomes one of the characters. The era ran from the late 60s, all the 70s, and the early 80s. Now, when you go out on the street and you see the girls that are working as streetwalkers, it's a completely different mindset. Most of the girls back then were either in college or had graduated from college. It was a completely different type of people. They ran it as a business. A lot of the girls now, unfortunately, we call them strawberries, they're in it for the drugs. They work just enough to get the drugs. And that's what they do. The girls back in the 70s, people that used drugs were not allowed to work. And so a question comes up, how would you stop them from working? There were so many hookers in Atlanta that were homegrown and were imported that a hooker commission was started specifically to handle how things were done. And they literally dictated where a girl could work, what corner. They assigned the corners. And all of this sounds like fantasy, but it isn't. I was there. Okay, they weren't appointed, they were elected. They were elected to office. Uh, One of our leads is a gal named Alex. Her stage name is Alexandria. And she, like most of the girls, were schizophrenic because you would be talking to one of them and you could see the eyes change. And I think that's what kept them from going off the deep end. But getting back to the commission, they were elected for 1 year terms, and there was a 5-person commission. They had, for the lack of a better word, I'd call them a goon squad. They enforced the edicts of the commission. And it was very strictly segregated, not by race or religion. It was segregated by the way the girls worked. If they wanted to work on Peachtree, they would start them off down on the south side on what used to be Stewart Avenue. Now it's called Metropolitan Parkway. I think the politicians changed the name figuring maybe it would upgrade it, but it's still an excellent place to get shot. It was then and it is now. But they would migrate. And the hot corner, the primary corner was 5th and Peachtree. And the cutoff line was on about 3rd because once you pass 3rd heading south, you get into the Fox Theater. And there was no way that they could work in front of the Fox Theater. The character that you're going to play, Alan, he was a beat cop at that time. And he was smart because he knew a lot of cops that don't understand it or not really thinking ahead. That was a tremendous source of information for the police department, because you've got hundreds and hundreds of eyes out there and ears, and they hear things. And the girls would let them know about robberies that were going down, all kinds of stuff. So the cops had a working relation with the working girls, and they would let them work because of the information they were getting out of them. The working girls as a mass, I practiced criminal law for about 30 years, and during that time I represented over 200 of the most successful working girls in the United States and a few in Canada. And they would call a meeting, and the girls that were really hookers would come to the meeting and they would vote. But the commission were the ones that voted on the specific items, not the mass, because they would have never gotten anything accomplished. And the first meeting that was held was in the basement of the Peachtree Manor Hotel, and that's where the El Morocco was. And a little side story about that, Darlene went to work when she was about 14 years old. And at that time, I think you had to be 21 to get into a club or to buy a drink. I think it's been lowered now to 18. But she had her birthday, and they decided to throw a birthday party at the El Morocco. So they brought the cake in with the candles and all of this, and there was a doorman that worked at the El Morocco, and he was Samoan. Great big guy, probably weighed 350, 400 pounds. And they brought the birthday cake in, and it had the 18 candles on it. And I saw a Samoan turn chalk white, because what he realized was Darlene had been working that bar for damn near 5 years and was underage. And they could just see the liquor license flying out the window. So she had her 18th birthday to say, look, I'm legal now, but all those years she hadn't been.